Hi, I'm Daniel. I've always wanted to do some best movies of the year list, but didn't because I often thought by next year's start, I still yet to see most of the year's most acclaimed movies, and they all come too quickly outdated. While I haven't seen every movie possible, and will continue to add movies to my personal list, I felt quite satisfied with what I managed to watch and can discuss in this video, even if it's early March or whenever I finish this video, which feels quite late. It might still be earlier than the Oscars at least. I don't believe much in overall years of film being good or bad, but this had a lot of great ones, and may still need to make this list in Q20, and even that leaves some I want on the list to be pushed out. I also find that I might want to keep these segments somewhat briefer than some other recent rankings, in order to not make this video that long. To discuss some reels, I'm going by 2025 premieres, as opposed to trying to be like a real pain released in the UK in January, I'm including that. It does create some awkward situations, like the day that People Union movie being great, but it premiered in 2024, released in the US 2025, and only released in the UK in 2026, so that doesn't get to be on any year list. I also want to keep in narrative films, so no documentaries and also no stage recordings. I loved 60 Musical Live, but as a filming of a show out for years, I didn't think it should count. I also need to specify I'm going off some of my own taste that I will explain when going through this list. I also want to spend some time discussing the honourable mentions before starting the list, as films I still really liked as a high 7 or low 8 out of 10. Plankton the movie, not good enough for actual mention, but it's a good act for the character and had a song I'm a jerky jerk that I may have liked quite a bit. That song alone demolished most of the film I'm talking about in this video. J. Kelly, not one of Noah Baumbach's better films with an unrelated story, but a really emotional and introspective look on the life of a famous actor with some really effective scenes. The Testament of Anne Ye, while a bit weak narratively and in how distant it is from the main characters, this is a really interesting and stylistically inventive period film with some great music. The Phoenician Scheme, again not one of Wes Anderson's best, but still funny and visually stylish movie. I don't see how his films are the same anymore than aesthetically. Mia Appleton is so great and fits in with the tone perfectly, and this is the best Benicio del Toro performance of the year. Speaking of, one battery after another. A movie I didn't love as much as most do. The first act is great, but the rest of the movie is just good to me. Still a young runtime that almost flies by, and will be a decent Best Picture winner. I just like most of the other nominees more. No Other Choice. A fun movie where the gimmick of a kid who's bad at it gets a bit old, but it's still full of so many special scenes and has the interesting portrayal of putting workers against each other. EAO, one of the only two movies in this video I reviewed, but Pixar still delivers. A great exploration of feeling the in the world that's full of creative concept and designs. A House of Dynamite, a very intense and thoughtful look at the instant response to an incoming nuke, and how we continue to live in a ticking time bomb. Best title of the year. I see why yet many were satisfied by the end, but I didn't mind and liked the structure going back in time 2 more times. I Am Frank Elder, a beautifully looking stop motion wonderland and an interesting ode to writing fiction. There's also some great songs. It released on Netflix sometime this year and I want more eyes on it. Now time to get to the main list. 20, The Secret Agent. This is a hard movie to summarise and especially make clear how this isn't a spy movie. This movie was very long to get through with some extended stretch away from the main character that were yes interesting. Still, this is really worth by the ending that may be unsatisfying, but is in such an impactful way through his final conversations. It is a really interesting look at memories being lost and of change that just easier to think about. This is also really visually interesting and gets you out of this culture and the community of those in hiding. This gets better with more thought, maybe with more time I think it should have been higher, but I wasn't particularly loving the first 2 hours of this. 19, The Running Man. I sort of get where the criticism came from with Edgar Wright's style being majorly toned down, aside from occasional montage or music choice, with the dialogue being often weak and by the third actors were using some steam. Still, I don't want to mark it down by who directed it and see that it was still an incredibly fun movie. A man entering a reality show where he's hunted down 30 days is just really engaging and thing to see. Just all the ways he gets past being caught and how the show works. I love the characters are very fun, especially Coleman Domingo as the host hammering up the role so hard. I also like how naturally Ben Richards' years becomes this similar defiance, and even as a comedic dystopian, the social commentary is still interesting, A really good movie I think deserves more credit. 18. Roofman. This tackles the true story of Jeffrey Manchester, a man who robbed 50 McDonald's restaurants and hid out in a Toys R Us for 6 months. This adapts that story in a really fun way with strong commentary and an engaging narration of his thought process. It's an enjoying time with this criminal who's mostly a nice person, and also kind of a half-out yuck of his need to provide, and this life he wants to live but couldn't. This could have been a bit more stylish, like why wasn't there a McDonald's Robin Tree montage? This is such a nice movie to sit with as a comedy and character study. 17. Hamnet. This movie is really devastating as a fictionalized account of Shakespeare that doesn't even make it obvious to him from the start, to get more invested in him and Agnes's relationship and family. This can be emotionally manipulative like all movies are, with the score someone's overdoing it in scenes where the sad thing hasn't happened yet. Still, this really succeeds in being started in a way that lingers as you keep thinking about it. The conflict around the different forms of grief and the power of art in expressing and immortalizing certain feelings just really hits. Just an exchange of yucks is so beautiful but devastating. Chloe Shao captures nature in such a personal way, and Jessie Buckley's given such a powerful lead performance felt all across the movie. It's great, but as a Hamlet fan, it annoyed me seeing the crowd boo Laertes when he was very justifiably against Hamlet. 16. Now you see me, now you don't. Am I really ranked this above Hamlet? Of course I am. When talking about these movies, people often need to specify how they're done more fun, but are they really? While not high art, I think it's well written in character interactions, and many of the tricks pulled off that aren't realistic, but still have a lot of thought into how they laid out. The final reveal is quite well set up. I also think getting your out these characters' return after all these years, and the pacing giving time in the middle for them to hang out really builds the group bond well. The new characters are especially highlighting their roles here, way better in the second film, and while still finding the first the best, I find this franchise very underrated that I could watch many more sequels of. Even if you have to keep ending with them about to discover some truth, and then not in the next movie. 15. Companion. This was an early release that I just decided to put over 2025 catch up, and I loved it way more than I thought I would. While I personally don't believe something happened in the first 30 minutes of spoilers, I will avoid mentioning it. The first act wasn't as strong, but once this movie kicks in, it's very funny and an engaging concept. It's just very easy to get invested in Iris's plight and seeing more Josh's true self as pathetic but also very intimidating. This isn't that much of a home movie, but can still get very unnerving at times. These concepts aren't original, this execution just makes them feel fresh. It also gets points from queuing oranges in the opening scene because I like oranges. 14. Yito Amie or the character of Rain. This movie shows life of an infant in such a wholesome and likeable way. I really like what it shows has more force than people would assume, and all the things being picked up on. The close relationship formed, especially one, just convey a lot. While simplistic, this still tackles Yife and Yos in such an effective ways. With Ami's doubt and yearning that not everything stays, it's also just very peaceful with the animation style and the sound design. Easily my favourite best anime feature nominee this year, but it's not my favourite animated film of the year. 13. It was just an accident. This involves the man recognizing his former torturer and proceeds to kidnap him, but then doubts it's him, so gets in contact with all people who knew him. The wacky hijinks this gets become quite chaotic, this remains a very thematically interesting movie. The different responses to trauma and wondering if they continue what's done to them is really interesting and conveyed with some great dialogue. Questioning if we should blame individuals or the system for ruining so many lives is still compelling, with one extended penultimate scene being so gripping, leading to such a lingering ending. What Jafar Panahi risked to make this movie against the Iran government and what was said through it is so great. I was quite disappointed this missed the Best Picture nomination, even if it's not quite in my top 10. 12. Dogman. It feels a bit weird that my most anticipated movie for years came out and didn't make that much of a strong effect on me, even if it is great. It's mainly just that P.T.'s arc here is good, but was better handled in the books that I talked about before, and Grandpa had no reason to be in this one. With that said, this had Dogman be the best he ever was, handling his grief in some actually sad ways. This movie is also very consistently funny, with its fast-paced tone, especially the first half. The animation is so well stylized at bringing these books to life. While I'm used to taking Dogman deeper than most people, this redemption arc of a villain for a good influence on his life is probably still far more than most expected from Dogman of all films. 11. Mickey 17. I'm still a big fan of this movie, even after it felt most moved on shortly after it's released. It's such a great concept of an expendable who yet going to die for a space mission. A young narrative backstory tells the story really well. I like how wacky this gets. The screwball middle between these characters is so much fun, and I like how the satire capitalism is handled. Through these silly but realistic villains, the metaphor for Ollie's ultimate version of you and questioning if you deserve to be happy is also very compelling. This could have been fleshed out a bit more to make the movie better, but it's still a very entertaining sci-fi film. 10. Materialist. The plot around the matchmaker struggling and what she sells is a strong hook, but really Echo's tone isn't what's expected from it. This was marked as a love triangle, but it's not really that, and while there's some funny interview scenes, it's not that much of a comedy. This is Sayine's songs play out the past lives, and really continues that grace in the dialogue and pondering. There's so many interesting conversations, and just a quiet, reflective vibe to it. Like one scene where we're watching a random wedding, with this writing with such a strong, deprecating tone. I also like this angle on loneliness and the messy state of relationships that maybe just appeals more to me as someone outside. There's still some predictable moments with the youth woman idea, and the actual romantic chemistry between actors is very weak. But I don't care for that. Give me Sapio living life. I don't get the mixed reception for this. It's all the way up to my top 10 of the year. 9. Sinners. On first watch, I found this good, but not as amazing as many were praised it to be. But with more reflection and rewatch, never mind, this is great. A really strong genre bend that uses vampires invading the Jupiter to a very interesting theme around the lack of a safe space for black people, and assimilation being the forced alternative to racism. There's a yacht thematically effective in the story, and the epilogue really has such a great impact on the whole thing. On that note, who decided to put the actual important ending during the credits where many people will miss it? It's also just an enjoyable time gathering everyone for this. That is a weaker first act, but still sets up a yacht. The music is great with that triumphant score, and I like the connection the music explored. While I Too is great and makes another Oscar push, Percy Pale Moon is my pick of best song that goes so hard. The cinematography is also very striking, and it just feels so cinematic in scale. Not near my personal best, but see how this is the defining film of the year. 8. Frankenstein. Quite a odd top 10 movies that got better in retrospect, including this being Del Toro's film that just feels so grand. As like a journey, visually and narratively. I haven't read the original novel yet, we'll probably get to it soon, but think the adaptational changes made were really interesting to not make this be a story about mutual downfall, and to expand the angle of generational trauma. These parallel arcs of both characters and what the end the other go means for them is just so powerful. The first half of Our Victor is strong, but the movie really kicks in with the creature's development being so compelling. That ending scene is constantly played in my mind. Jacob Aioli's performance is so incredible, saying the booming monster, and stage of yearning for this creature with the irony of being great. I don't mind some lines being unsubtle, for just how hard so many lines and exchanges go. It's still over young in areas, and Elizabeth role feels underused, but such a towering and brilliant movie. 7. Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery. I originally had this higher, but some others moved up, and this does unfortunately have the burden of being the weakest of the three Knives Out movies. With that said, there are still so great mystery films, with Ben Blanc being so engaging a character, even in a supporting role. I can get past this not being as funny or utilizing psychos as much, for this doing stuff unique with the culprit as opposed to seeing his hateable character get taken down. This is an interesting look of religion, and the way when they use to keep people out instead of getting people in. Father Judge was likeable lead to follow through this, and his dynamic with Bianca might my favourite as duo so far, which is saying a lot given how amazing the other two are. It looks great with the small town church, and it's just entertaining and well crafted mystery. This showed this franchise more totally versatile than I thought, and I am ready for as many more as possible. 6. Sentimental Value. This is such an amazing family drama that constantly makes you feel so just with these different characters. Seeing their life of a father who was a director who was remained distant from his daughters, and the sort of awkwardness that persists really means a lot. The way this tackles generational trauma and how they are more similar and understand each other more than they know and can express is really interesting. The meaning of Gustav's script and that whole scene between Nora and Agnes is just so emotionally powerful. This isn't fully satisfying in showing Gustav's regret and the amendment. This is ultimately more Nora's story and it excels at that. There's just a lot to take in from seeing her life, and while the whole cast is great, Renati Reinsberg is the standout, which brings so much emotions and form to the character. The backdrop of the history of the house and switching between four perspectives tells the story really well in a movie that just stuck with me. 5. Begonia. This is such a fun and thematic compelling film around the CEO being kidnapped under the belief she's an alien. This plot just progresses and escalates in really entertaining riffing ways, especially that final act. The score is great with each yell noise setting the tone, and this is visually shot in some amazing ways. It's technically great, but also so well written with these exchanges between characters. Both the performances are expectedly great and really elevate so many scenes, especially Jesse Plemons as the movie breaks down all the layers of how messed up Teddy is. But also Aidan Dell is equally strong in adding likability to this movie with Don's character really leaving an impact as well. It also represents the increasing feelings that the world's ending inevitable, nothing to do with it, in such a great way. I like how it handles if it's humanity the concept, or if it's the corporate elite, or both, and the whole ending being bleak. But there's also something almost beautiful in showing just everyday life in that way. Such a spectacular movie with the right amount of weirdness, but still one most can get something to enjoy from. 4. Marty Supreme. It was good having space in my favourite sport movie for so long, but it had to end eventually. The plot of an aspiring table tennis player having to hustle for money is just told in the most exciting and freeing way. Matty Mouser can often be annoying and selfish, but it's also hard not to party root for him to not just sort his life out, but also win those ping pong matches. He's just a very funny and instantly iconic character, with his fast talking and just some of the things he says. This really sells an American dream story, with his want to be something while entering adulthood, and the stressful comedic set piece all across the middle stopping him from playing. This is full of the very entertaining side characters, who all could have featured more, but make it off their time, making 2.5 hours not go on. The electronic score sounds brilliant and just feels so electrifying to watch. I will never understand how this got 9 Oscar nominations but not one for score. This is a type of movie that just feels like an instant classic as my favourite Best Picture nominee and my favourite Oscar nominated film on this list. 3. The Bad Guys 2. I already made a video on this film so I'll keep it briefer. This is such an amazing sequel that follows up on the first in such compelling ways while amping up the action to such an extent. While I think I still slightly lean towards the bad guys for having a stronger arc, this is still a strong younger form of criminal struggling to get a second chance. This feeling is really interesting and threatening, and the foreshadowing for certain plans are written so well, and just the creativity in some of these ideas is top level, especially that whole climax. The stylized animation looks even better, and I just love these characters. The sequel tease at the end is just so deserved, but no DreamWorks best, but not my favourite animated movie of the year. 2. Neja 2. I was struggling to find a way to watch this for almost a year, and I just about managed to see it before this list. Remember hearing about the Chinese film that became the highest rated animated film of all time, but most outside the country didn't seem to care for it? It's actually amazing, with Nisa being really good, this is just a massive improvement. The first half was already great seeing more of these characters, and the central friendship I felt underdeveloped before is given a lot more time and depth. Nisha's character really connects to me, with his self-doubt and the theme of society shunning him is expanded in such a powerful and epic way. The dramatic weight in how dark parts are, and certain lines go incredibly hard. The second half has such a well-executed twist, and leads to a big, large-scale all-out battle from so many that has narratively earned, and have me sitting in shock that this height was accomplished. Such an epic move with the Nisa franchise as a whole being very underrated, and presumably a great adaptation of Chinese mythology. It was also quite funny, with even some toy humour somehow fitting the tone. I could have put this at number 1, but one movie spoke to me more, even as the far quieter movie. 1. Sorry Baby. While there wasn't quite a movie I gave 10 out of 10 to this year, this feels like the closest, with so many scenes sticking with me, even if those scenes are purely conversations. Something bad happened to Agnes, but life moved on. And the non-linear structure really makes the build-up to it and the scene itself feel very unnerving. This presentation of the lasting effects of trauma through these reminders put in our house and this career opportunity is very effective. Only showing source seconds to each year does a lot to represent this time passing to see if Agnes can move on, or if Agnes should remains really interesting. Eva Victor did such an excellent job as a writer and director that it took me time to appreciate her performance being really striking and funny in the deadpan tone. This is also partly a comedy, with that style of awkward comedy as the hope mechanism being often very funny, And it's just Tony manages so well through his great dialogue. The conversation in the sandwich scene is just so moving. As well as Diddy's whole role as the ideal friend just serves so much. This is sad, funny, and just the right amount of hopeful that is so emotionally powerful. This is why I consider Story Baby to be the best film of 2025. In conclusion, this was such an enjoyable video to make and talk about so many movies that I recommend watching a lot of them. I have a letterboxd listing all 2025 films I've seen, which is linked in the description. I will continue to add to if I move things around or add new films. Something else to note, while the studios aren't the creators involved, it is notable that A24 got the first, second, fourth, and 10th spot on this list. It is an impressive domination of my top 10, even if they only disputed 2 of these. Anyway, it's good to talk about multiple movies rather than one in the video, as a week of the year that I'll like to make in the following year. It's been a month between videos, but I might try to review a new movie soon. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope this list will become instantly outdated by the next 2025 release I watch. The end.